All right, everyone, Nikos here. I'm going to take you through some joint actions. So these are all the joint actions that you'll need to know provisionally for your level 2 exam, but things that you're going to need to know for any assessment pretty much that you do related to A&P. So I'll start with the shoulders and then we'll work our way down the body. So if you want to jump up and do this with me, that'll be great. So let's begin with the shoulders. So the shoulders can do something called flexion, which is where we move the arm in that direction there. And extension is this way. So flexion, extension, okay? We can also do something called horizontal flexion and extension. So similar, but the arms are in a sort of horizontal, just think of a horizon there, look, and then bring them together. That's horizontal flexion. And if we take them apart, we call that horizontal extension. We can abduct the shoulder, okay? So if you were abducted by aliens, you'd be taken away in a flying saucer. So we take our arms away from the body, we call that abduction. If we bring the arm back to the body, we call that adduction, ADD. So ABD, duction, abduction, versus ADD, duction, adduction. Got it? We've also got internal and external rotation of the shoulder. So if we go internal, we go inwards, and external is outwards. So let's run through those. We've got flexion, extension, we've got internal and external rotation, we've got horizontal flexion and extension, we've got abduction and adduction. There's also another one called circumduction, which is basically circular movements of the shoulders. You've got the shoulder girdle as well. So the shoulder girdle is basically going to be your clavicle, your scapula, your humerus all kind of moving together. So if I do those 4 actions now, so we have elevation and depression. So elevation and depression of the shoulder girdle. You've also got protraction, which is where you round your shoulders forwards. And retraction is where we go the opposite direction. So protraction, retraction, elevation, depression. Got it? Next is, let's do the elbow next. So the elbow can flex and extend. Notice when we're talking about flexion, the joint angle tends to reduce, so look, 180, 90, etc. And when we extend the joint, the angle opens up, okay? The forearm has the ability to move as well, so we can do something called supination. Supination is where we put our palm face up, and then pronation is where we turn it the opposite way. So classic way to remember this one, if you're holding a bowl of soup, you would hold it palm facing up. So think bowl of soup, supination, pronation, the opposite way around. The spine, so the spine can flex. It can also extend. So flexion of the spine, extension of the spine, and we've also got lateral flexion. So lateral flexion of the spine and rotation, which is basically that. So rotation, lateral flexion, flexion, and extension. That's the upper body sorted. Next up, let's look at the hips. So the hips can do everything that the shoulders could, with the exception of horizontal flexion and extension. So if you know the shoulders, pretty much you'll know the hips. Okay, so have a look at the hips. Let's move the screen slightly there. Yeah. Right, so with the hips, we've got flexion, which is this. Extension, so again, opening up the angle, closing the angle. Abduction, just like the shoulders, is where we take the hip away, or the leg away, and adduction, just like the shoulders, where we bring it back. We've got internal and external rotation, so internal and external rotation of the hip, and we've also got circumduction, so that was the circular motion that we had, same as with the shoulder. And there's your hips. So flexion, extension, abduction, adduction, internal rotation of the shoulders, internal rotation of the hip, external rotation of the hip. There's a good anatomy lesson for you. And then we've also got circumduction there as well. All right, and then apart from that, the knee. So the knee, I just need to move this down a little bit. So the knee can flex like this and extend like that. Flexion, extension of the knee. And then the ankle. So with the ankle, we can do a few movements. So one of them, that's a bit too low, I'm going to say. One of them is going to be planting the toes into the floor, which we call plantar flexion. So let me show you what that looks like. And then dorsiflexion is where we go like this. So the toe comes up. So plantar flexion, just think you're planting the toes into the ground. Yeah. And dorsiflexion is where you point it up. If there's any aspiring marine biologists out there, the dorsal fin of a shark, yeah, so the little fin that sticks out the back, dorsal. The last one is inversion and eversion of the ankle. It's a bit awkward doing it down here now, but anyway, I'm going to stay here. So inversion is going to be like that. So if you turn your ankle so that you see more of the inside of the foot, that's inversion. So think inside inversion. And if you turn it the opposite way, we call that eversion. All right, so I hope you find that helpful. Go and practice those as much as you can. I would make that your #1 priority to learn this week. Cheers, guys.